Where people in, say, Australia have a clear-cut idea of what landscape is. It's a beautiful, naturalistic environment. In South Africa, this whole meaning has been totally transformed.
South Africa through the hands and eyes of a painter, late in the program. I'm Vladimir Lusic, and this is Vox Populi. Some artwork is painful to produce, some is very hard to live with. But when art reflects the reality of life in a country, then, according to white South African painter Victor Gordon, it must be done no matter the pain.
Well, as a white South African, being born in South Africa, I find that I have a type of, I share a collective guilt for what actually has been perpetrated there. There's no question of that.
For Victor Gordon, this is the landscape of South Africa. For him, the brush has become a weapon against a system which has for years subverted basic human rights.
You wish to know why I've manufactured these political artworks? I'll tell you. It's my firm conviction that every opportunity needs to be taken and exploited. To attempt to inform and conscientize people outside of South Africa of the prevailing conditions within.
To come to terms with the realities of life in South Africa, Victor sought refuge in painting.
My reason for leaving was that I felt it too oppressive to actually function normally in South Africa. It was at the time of my leaving South Africa illegal to, in fact, paint policemen.
You must disperse and leave this place immediately. If you don't do it, you'll be arrested. I'm not going to warn you again.
I've tried to extract certain signifiers, certain incidents, certain issues that are really part and parcel of apartheid South Africa. I could cite an example, one of the works which is just simply titled Migrant Workers. And this work deals specifically with the vulnerability of people who have no rights as such as labourers. They don't have any entrenched rights, and they are brought to their place of work and sent away at will. The style that I use is basically one of accessibility. What I wished to really do was to convey to a particular constituency people who are not South African necessarily, people who don't know anything about South Africa. Hence I've used the style of fairly overtly, my paintings are fairly overtly naturalistic. Through alienation, I would like to shock the public. The fact of the matter is that apartheid is absolutely appalling, and the imagery of apartheid is appalling. This image is titled A Black State-Sponsored Vigilante, and that is my attempt to clarify to the observer exactly what is meant by this painting. It is a very contentious issue. The world has obviously seen the problems as put out by the South African government, where they talk of black-on-black violence, and the essence is it is an issue and it is happening, but it is very much something that is being orchestrated by the South African government. If not orchestrated directly, it's certainly encouraged. The essence is, in terms of the theory, that it is an extension of the old colonial divide and rule system, that essentially people who don't have much can easily be co-opted into a system to be set against each other.
What about those whips and next to the Bible?
Well, it's been important to introduce what I feel like real objects, because the Bible has been bolted down onto the background, and that's a very vital issue, because the Bible has basically been subverted. It's been used and abused in the name of apartheid. Everything is done in terms and explained and rationalized in biblical terms. The whip is a whip that is used. It's identical to a whip that would be employed by the South African police when they yes, when they go out and actually when they perform riot control, as they call it.
He describes his works as icons that move between two worlds, the real and the symbolic.
The person is holding a broken shotgun. He's going to reload it, and here I've actually made a reference to the type of impotence and the type of sexual violence that I believe goes hand in hand with the type of oppression that is carried out in South Africa. This person is powerless until his shotgun is reloaded and he actually discharges it, at which point other people really get hurt.
But it hasn't been that easy to escape the steely hand of apartheid.
On one hand, South African apartheid is as present here in Australia as it permeates other societies. I've tried to deal with that in the one particular work which relates to the South African ambassador, and I think it's important that since coming to Australia, I've been absolutely personally insulted by the way the South African ambassador actually legitimates apartheid to the Australian public.
But nonetheless, the mood of his paintings is changing. Now, there is a glimmer of hope.
I think every South African must believe that since February, since Mandela has been released and the leadership has actually started negotiations with the South African government, that in fact there certainly is hope that things will actually resolve themselves equitably. And this painting is perhaps, of all of my work connected with this theme, is perhaps the most hopeful and most positive of all of the images that I've created. It embodies, on the panels, is actually inscribed in thick paint, in the thick impasto paints, is the Freedom Charter. There's a whole document written out here which is hardly legible. You can, if you come up close, you can actually pick up certain words. You can actually extract from it what the meaning of those words really is. And this document embodies everything that we wish to see happen and come about in South Africa to create a democratic society. The reason, of course, why the imagery, certainly why the document is not very clear, of course, is that it is just emerging.
Isn't it great that there are still countries like Australia where you can find a haven and freedom to express yourself?
Defuse the ticking time bomb of tension which could explode into a conflict.
The disturbing images of apartheid. This is the work of South African artist Victor Gordon, on display at the Waterside Workers' Hall in Sussex Street. The exhibition is called Behold the Land Where Satan Reigns.
Defuse the ticking time bomb of tension.
Get us into the ball place.